Hello, people. This is the Seahawks podcast where we're going to react to the Seattle Seahawks' well, it wasn't unfortunate, was it? But it was disappointing defeat to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do hope, and I do owe you an apology, people. Happy New Year. I messed up last night. I didn't overindulge, but I had a good time. I then fell asleep. I then woke up, and like ships in the night, Griff and I, as we tried to meet for a podcast, I then fell asleep again. So Griff is not only a great podcaster, obviously the better half of Seattle Overload from a kind of making good points sense, but he's also a very loyal and understanding friend who...
Matty, stop. It's fine. Nobody cares. It's all good.
I care. Anyway, it was 4 a.m. for me, and it was bad, wasn't it? So this is like the first time in ages, Griff, we've had like an actual night to like process.
Think about a game.
You were like, you're tweeting last night. You were on fire.
Well, I was already. I had made all those determinations like mid game.
Yeah, but it was all like pouring out. Was it therapeutic?
No, because then I have to read the replies. And I can't not read the replies because I refuse to mute and block people.
Chat, please do let me know how the audio is. I know that we have some audio files who like to be helpful.
Just kidding. I love all you guys.
Snap. Look who it is. Little Ty.
Hey, I'm only here. I forgot your overlay.
Was this an incorrect overlay?
Producer Ty Dan Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's your preview overlay from the other night.
Oh snap! Right. I didn't even notice that.
Right. Live producer.
Hi Ty.
Hi. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
I like we're having a German sportswear brand off, except Nike isn't German.
I look like the Drip King, like Drip Goku right now.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, you're totally familiar with that.
Yep, I am down with the,
with the youths. Yeah,
the jerk king,
the jerk. Yeah,
don't say that too fast.
No, don't want that. Don't want that.
No.
So, are we still sad about?
Yeah. Well, we were actually going to do the preamble, Ty.
Okay, I'll stick around for preamble.
Yeah. You don't do the like
no.
So
no one wants that.
So no. So I saw 2 movies over this weekend.
Okay.
Right. Now the first one was this film called Wonka. Right.
Oh no.
Right.
Okay.
Oh no. Right. And my take, like, I cannot stand Timothy Chalamet or whatever his name is, right? I cannot stand him. I cannot take. How is he a male lead? As someone who also looks young, how is he at the point where? Why do we take him seriously? I have a real issue with him. Like, he makes me angry.
Because people want to have certain relations with him. And that's
why? He's tiny and scrawny.
I mean, he went to Juilliard. He's got the cheekbones.
Yeah, he looks like he went to. He looks like he went to that thing.
Yeah, Juilliard. I hear about Juilliard all the time, but I've never seen Juilliard. Where is Juilliard?
I'm always hearing about that.
Is it in New York?
I
thought you go to like NYU for like acting and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, he should be like the side character who has to be rescued. Why is he always this? I don't understand. And as Wonka, he's quite eccentric, so that kind of works. But I mean, he should be like Wonka as a child, not Wonka as a young adult.
But he does play characters that kind of lean into his physique and
like
Vitas and everything.
My issue mostly with him is that I feel like he plays the same character in everything I've seen him in, like Lady Bird, Don't Look Up. Like, he's just the same guy.
I appreciate, Ty, how that's actual like rational analysis. I just hate the guy.
Well, there's also that. Like, I just want to like punch him in the face.
Yeah, right. Right.
I think I'm more neutral. I don't think I really have an opinion on him so much. I don't think I'm wowed by him, but I don't think I'm stirred by him.
That's very big of you.
I think it's also like it's kind of the Tom Holland, Chris Pratt thing right now, where it's just like, all right, if there's a role, especially like a popular role for like an existing franchise that they're turning into a movie or whatever, it's like he's like one of the first guys that always comes up.
Yeah,
it's like
oversaturating.
There's other good actors out there, quality actors, young actors, even attractive young actors, even that are not just Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah. Well, you know who's been shafted? Who's been shafted because of how his last movie went? Is John Boyega. Like, why is he not in more things?
His career he's good. I like him.
Yeah, he was in oh shoot, what was that movie? Hold on.
See, he's a real man.
In titles, but
like he was in what's that movie called? Oh no, this is bad. This is upsetting. Let me look at his IMDb page. Oh yeah, Detroit. Detroit was good. I really liked Detroit. Detroit was good. What was the other one that he was in though? He was in Tyrone. No, that's not it. No. See all. But yeah, he also like doesn't want to do like Disney stuff anymore.
That makes sense.
Like even like
he wants to do like real like adult films for adults.
Well, like the way that they treated his character in Star Wars, like he's just like over it. Like
that was weird. Yeah,
it was so like they created such an interesting setup for his character art in the first one, and then they like basically made him a side character in the second one. And then the third one, they're like, oh, he might actually have the Force, but it's like we're at the end of the trilogy now. Like
that seemed to happen with like every character. Their development was just destroyed.
But like with this Kang stuff, because like I think he would be a great replacement for Kang. Now that Jonathan Majors is out, someone asked him on Twitter, and he was like, no. So
well, there you have it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, he wants to do films for adults.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the other film I watched, talking about films for adults, was Saltburn.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask if one of these movies was Saltburn.
Yeah,
I saw Saltburn. Yeah,
really bizarre.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about that scene? That scene. You know what scene I'm talking about.
I just don't think that was funny. I know it's a black comedy, but I didn't.
It's like it was uncomfortable.
Just not good.
Very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Murder on the dance floor.
Give it like a. It was trying a bit hard. That's what I'd say.
Did you see Beau is Afraid? With Joaquin Phoenix. Oh, okay. Because that's also.
Oh yeah, that was meant to be incredible.
It's very good until like the last act. It
was meant to be like just nuts.
That's what I heard. The last act is
okay.
It's something. It's definitely something.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to see Godzilla -1. I still haven't seen that. Would like to see that. That looks very good. I never saw Killers of the Flower Moon.
No, that's meant to be good.
Yeah.
Apparently Ferrari's really good. I want to see that.
Okay. What's Ferrari about?
So there was an olive oil company in Modena in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And
is it a prequel to the Cars film franchise?
No, I don't think so.
It's a prequel to Paul Newman's olive oil and Caesar salad dressing.
Yeah. And then there was also that one about the olive oil versus the like American version.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who. It had Matt Damon in it. Yeah.
Ford versus Ferrari.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What's the American version of olive oil? Avocado oil.
Mm-hmm. Peanut oil.
Peanut oil, yes. Peanut oil is really good. Like, delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's a question, right? So, you know, Five Guys.
Yeah.
Humor me.
Yeah.
You can tell this is earlier because I'm very ADHD right now. So Five Guys is pretty good, right? It's pretty good. It's tasty. But I happen to have a few friends who have peanut allergies, right? No bueno. But I always say, even though Five Guys fries their fries in peanut oil, surely, like, if you have a peanut allergy, you can just have that, right? No biggie. Because the heat would kill the peanuts.
Is that how it works?
I think.
You mean like how the heat like kills like, you know,
bacteria,
alcohol, etc. Yeah.
I don't think it denatures. It's the chemical compound in it that would send your friend into anaphylactic shock, though.
See,
I think a great way to find out is to test it.
Yeah,
right. That's why I always say I kind of, you know, I think I annoy them a bit because I keep saying you should probably try it out, and they don't. So we're at an impasse where, can people with fatal nut allergies eat food fried in peanut oil? Brackets, deep fried.
Still trying to figure out what that other movie that I saw John Boyega in was.
Was it like a kind of art house indie type of movie?
Yeah.
Was it the British one? Was he in that like one about the block?
Oh, Attack the Block.
Yeah.
That was like
wasn't recent though, right? That was his first,
that was like 2011.
What about that one? Is it they cloned Tyrone or something?
That's new. I haven't seen that yet.
Oh right, because that's gonna be alright, I think.
But
that's sort of what he's going for.
Yeah. Have you seen Sorry to Bother You with Lakeith Stanfield?
No, I want to though.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, Lakeith is excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
Chat, any movies you guys have seen that you like lately that we should check out?
This Seattle Overload on podcast.
Ty, did you watch What If?
No, not yet.
I don't think it's as good as season 1, but I'm compelled by the overarching narrative where they're gonna, tie it all together eventually.
Sure. Yeah.
And interweave it with live action.
I saw something like they already released a clip from like season 3 or something.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
So they're already like working on that. They're already like pretty much with that. That's interesting. I thought the release schedule was really interesting with like doing it one per day over the holiday. So yeah, I'll just like now that they're all out, I'll probably just like binge it.
Yeah,
just watch it. I'll let you know. But yeah, yeah, there isn't like really any like Marvel shit coming out. Like, there's Deadpool is in July, and then is that it? Is that the only Marvel movie coming out this year?
Yeah. Then they've got some shows, the Echo show and Daredevil.
Oh yeah, Agatha I think is coming out.
Yeah.
I'm interested by Echo because like that looked like kind of violent and gritty and dark like the Netflix shows. So I'm interested to see like how far they actually like take it with that.
Yeah,
if they still like Disney-fy it at all.
The reviews are that it definitely leans into all of it, but some are kind of hinting at like cohesion problems, pacing problems. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I hope not. I sure hope not.
You would be so upset if there were pacing problems in the Echo show, Matty.
Yeah.
God forbid it happens.
You'd be very upset about continuity issues in the MCU.
Yeah.
Right. It really bothers me.
Kevin Feige, if you're listening, please think of Matty. Please.
Yeah.
Matty is very concerned about the fact that no one's acknowledged the celestial in the ocean.
In the Indian Ocean, just
right. The Indian Ocean, of course.
Yeah.
The big
celestial is he's just there. Like,
why aren't we acknowledging that?
Yeah. No one's there.
Should we catch up with the chat and then
we should hit off? We should hit it, Matty.
Griff, come on. Henry, Happy New Year. Dr. McNuggets, I hope the Fuskies are suitably hucked for you. The Huskies, though, they might stand a chance. OG3, Happy New Year to you too. Maybe I'll be nice to you in 2024. I don't know. That's kind of you're kind of being a bit needy there.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get that kind of character development this season.
No, no.
But maybe a couple seasons.
Stick around to find out. You know.
Yeah.
There might be some development.
Yeah.
Well, Jumbo, nice to see you. Brendan, great to see you. Happy New Year to you too. Hope you have you do have nice coffee, I'm sure, but we know you for your coffee, so thank you, Brendan. Yeah. Christopher, sorry that you're working on New Year's Day, but see you on the replay. Jack, good to see you. Jackson, apparently there's a new Locked On video.
Well, it's actually premiering right now.
Wow, that is disgusting.
Yeah,
I'm
trying to take views away from you,
Jackson. If you're a real fan, you'd dual stream it.
Yeah, dual stream, one eye on Overload,
left ear, right ear, that type of deal.
Yeah.
Edit word, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very kind.
Thank you.
And John, no need to apologize, John. You just missed us talking about movies.
You're not late. They're late.
Yeah. Like super late.
So quickly give us the breakdown on that. What happened?
I already did, Ty. You missed it. Yeah.
Oh, I missed it. Okay. I'll watch back. That's a me problem. Yeah.
And John asks if I get a chance to attend Pete Carroll's end of year presser. Well, John, I probably won't because it will be in person, I think. So yeah,
right.
No, but I can see what I could see. I could ask, given it is the end of season.
Yeah, but you're assuming that the Seahawks are not going to beat the Cardinals and that the Bears are not going to beat the Packers, Matty. That sounds like a defeatist mentality to me. That sounds to me like you don't believe. You're a hater.
Toxic.
Yeah,
yep.
Toxic. Yeah.
Yep.
You're the most toxic person on Seahawks Twitter.
Yeah. John, though, that is a very interesting question. I've kind of been thinking about something along those lines. Right. Should we hit it, Griff?
Yeah, we should definitely hit it.
Hit it, Matty. I'm out. Bye. Love you guys.
Ty. Love you too. Bye, Ty. Thanks so much for that.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye, Ty.
Yeah, bye.
And then number 2.
Let's do it, Griff. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's time for Griff and I to react live to the Seahawks' defeat at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was a must-win game coming into this if the Seahawks wanted to make the playoffs. They lost 30-23. We're actually doing this because of my New Year's Day shenanigans. They continued into New Year's Day. The day after the Seahawks loss, we haven't had time to dive into the tape, but we have had time to kind of process our thoughts. Griff has tweeted through it. I've slept through it. And now, Griff, where do you want to take this loss? Because, I mean, my kind of overall impression is, and it's a really basic thing to say, but the Steelers rushing for 202 yards, 4.4 yards per carry average. And that's actually including Mason Rudolph, 6 carries for 5 yards. So really, if you avoid that, it's even worse, average-wise. The Steelers turning the ball over from Geno Smith, winning the takeaway battle. They just played a more Pete Carroll brand of football than Pete Carroll himself. They played like how a Pete Carroll team, what we've heard him say over the years, plays. They went 6 of 13 on third down, 46%. Seattle only went for 3 of 9 on third down, 33%. It was just super disappointing because it just looked like, and I've heard from people at the game, I know Mike Dugar on his Man-to-Man podcast remarked as well, that the Steelers were more physical, they looked more urgent, and ultimately this is not a one-score game. They could have very easily Najee Harris slid down at the end to kill the clock.
Yeah,
just a pantsing, just a complete mauling of the Seahawks. And the emblematic is that play where Najee Harris is pushed in when he's at the 4-yard line, pushed in by his offensive line. Just an absolute complete humiliation of the Seahawks defense in particular. But yeah. Where do you want to take this, Griff? What are your overall impressions?
I think the overall impressions are kind of the broadest 2 topics you talk about when your defense isn't playing well. It's talent level or total talent level and coaching. I'm coaching and scheme interweave with one another. I think that they have. I mean, I do think that there are scheme problems, but I'm more worried about how the scheme is being coached and applied week to week. I mean, the players out in the field, they didn't have enough players out in the field that could beat blocks frequently enough, basically. And it wasn't really coming from the main guys who take on blocks. It wasn't really Reed and Leo. I mean, they were fine this game. It wasn't their best game as 2 individuals, but they were fine taking on blocks. They have a crisis of edge play, really. Even Mafe it's a little too much for him. And we have to remember that when you base really out of even that's not technically base, but when your core calls are a 4-man front, the fewer guys on the line of scrimmage, the more pressure is going to be on each player. 4-man front is harder on each player. 5-man front is easier on each player. And to take pressure off of them, the second level kind of has to be perfect with their horizontal leverage and everything. And so when you have a crisis of edge play against the run anyway, the second level also not being perfect, they're in the wrong spots. They're not leveraging their block correctly. They're trying to backdoor at the last second. All these things then compounded by the fact that they're not tackling well. It makes average tackler. It makes great tacklers good tacklers. It makes good tacklers average tacklers. It makes average tacklers bad tacklers when you're not leveraged well to make the tackle. Just to hammer that point home, last year, the Seahawks, we all remember how bad the run defense was overall. Now, the run defense was good when they played 5-man fronts. They just didn't play 5-man fronts very often. But on the tackling note, their missed tackle rate was top 5 in terms of fewest tackles missed last year when playing a 5-man front. When playing a 4-man front, it was bottom 5. They just played a lot of 4-man fronts. So the point is that you want to fix a tackling problem. Yeah, drill tackling, etc. But fix the things that lead to being in bad positions to make a good tackle. They often found themselves not just missing tackles, but also in poor positions to make the tackle. And you can do that by the arithmetic being to your advantage and everything being leveraged properly, so that the running back is never in a 2-way go with the defender, where you've got your vice leverage or compression leverage, a guy to your left, guy to your right of you at any given point. Guys were losing blocks. They have crisis of edge play. The second level that they had out there, Bobby Wagner is bad. Devin Bush is not good against the run. At least he wasn't this game. When Devin Witherspoon isn't in there, you have Artie Burns. And then when you're playing cover 3, Julian Love, that is a horrible second level of a defense, even with the loaded box. Burns, Love, Bush, Wagner, it's bad. Now, you can manage one of those guys if the other 3 are decent. But when all 4 are below a talent threshold, all their negatives are magnified and none of their positives, because each one of those 4 players have some traits that apply. None of them can be revealed. You can lean on Witherspoon and Brooks. If they're in there, the other 2 can kind of get away with some stuff, right? Whatever that combination of the other 2 is. But it's that combined with the, Derek Hall made some splashy stuff. I'm really confident Derek Hall will be a good player eventually, but he isn't right now. Daryl Taylor has regressed into nothing, and it's simply too much for Boye Mafe right now. Even though he's doing everything he can't do it without Nwosu. So it's all those things combining. Really, like the front 7 in totality that was out there yesterday is a bottom 5 front 7 in the league. And that is not their intended bottom 7. And that is not their intended front 7 at all.
Well, and that's a crazy statement, Griff, given, what they gave up to get Leonard Williams, how well Jaron Reed has played this year. And it's lucky that they have him under contract for next year too, because in terms of just on tape, what he's put together, but then the fact that does he have 8.5 sacks on the season now?
Probably.
He'd be really in line for, let me just double check that. Okay, this is saying 7 Pro Football Reference, so I don't know why I got 8.5 sacks. Anyway, he's got a high sack total. And then Boye Mafe's been a really ascending player with high sacks. Jordan Brooks, I know he wasn't playing, but he's promising. But just the fact that the rest of it is just such an issue is.
Well, sorry to cut you off, but
No, go ahead.
Any position group. Just speaking about the front 7, you have any position group. So let's just talk about the front 7. You have your players that are supposed to be your stars and the players that are not supposed to be your stars, and how good each of those groups are matter. The players that are supposed to be your better players, I don't think you have as a single top 5 player at any one of those spots, but a nucleus of Leonard Williams and Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe's emergence, and for my money, Jordan Brooks is a really good nucleus. How good are the other players? Jaron Reed is a firmly above average player, but he's a rotational guy. Bobby Wagner is he is all the way at the bottom of Mike's right now, middle linebackers. So if Bobby was average, that would reveal the ceiling players more so. Artie Burns kind of drops the whole thing. There are some things he does in coverage that are interesting, right? But right now we're talking about the run fit, because the nickel is basically a linebacker for all intents and purposes for how they scheme. And I think that's a good thing. I think that is good structure, actually, and which we've talked about. But the players still have to play well. So it's the floor players are worse than they've ever been, I think, for the longest time. And the reason why, I know people don't like the Ken Norton Jr. defenses, but those defenses still hung around average. At times were better than average, at times slightly worse. At times much worse than that. But in the aggregate, they were average, is because people underrated how good the quote unquote floor players were. Those role players are necessary. Every team, elite defenses, have stars and they have a high floor from the role players. The Seahawks, I think, top to bottom, when they're healthy, they actually have, I think, the ceiling players necessary to be a top 10 defense, but the floor with their rostering decisions completely gave out. Bobby Wagner made them worse. As much as people dislike Cody Barton, Bobby Wagner in the aggregate made them worse. Moving Jordan Brooks from Mike to Will made them worse, not because Brooks isn't a good Will. He's equally good at either spot. Mike is more important in the position. Julian Love is worse than Ryan Neal. He's worse than Jamal Adams. Which I know, I wanted an upgrade on Neal. I think we both did, but Love is, he's shown signs, right? But it's when Devin Witherspoon isn't out there, the whole point of drafting a guy at 5th overall is that you're going to get 5th overall play, but you're not going to get it if he's not on the field. So I think it's all those things combining, and then in addition to that, so basically they need their stars to get healthy.
Yeah. So add
another star, but then they need to roster the floor players better. And that's even before you get to coaching changes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's personnel. We maybe could have a front office discussion a bit afterwards, but in terms of like the issues from last Sunday, there's a personnel kind of, they're obviously not as talented as they could be in certain areas. They had some injuries, but then there's also that problem of guys, for whatever reason, over the last few weeks, and certainly on Sunday, they seem to be trying to do too much on certain plays and then giving up big creases. So Jalen Warren, his 18-yard touchdown run, you have dudes slanting over into their new gap, designed to penetrate into the backfield, and then they're trying to get back and win back outside, not into their gap, as though they don't trust what's going on behind them before the ball's actually cut back that way or bounced out that way. Right. And it hits up basically where they should have been all along, and they were going to, and then decided not to go there. And so exploring why that happens is interesting, and it's especially important because the first 8 weeks of the season, when they had a very good run defense, I think it ranked number 2 overall. I know the first 5 weeks it was number 1 overall. I asked Pete Carroll about the changes they'd made in terms of the techniques up front from 2022 to 2023. And he goes and says, that's part of it, that little subtle technique change, how they're playing the nose tackle, but more, it's the first and second level playing together. And what we've seen on Sunday, what we've seen in kind of issues that have occurred is the first and second level not playing together. And why that happens is very, very troubling. You also get, and it's this kind of, that does lead into the kind of coaching side and the messaging coming from the coaching staff. I mean, you could also criticize the coaching staff for why is the inside backer alignment, why is their alignment so off? Why are they so ill prepared for basic concepts? It's all well and good if they say we repped this concept so many times in practice, we did it fine. We've heard that before this season, and it didn't get done. But nothing actually changes out on the field. So a good example is on that same Warren carry. But Devin Bush is lined up like it's an under front. He's lined up wrong. He should be in the A gap. He's lined up wider than the backside guard. So his eyes are in the wrong place. His alignment's in the wrong place. And so you get a disaster front side, a disaster backside. And that's how you get an 18-yard carry untouched when you're actually pressuring to stop the exact run you got. And you're in a great front to stop the exact run you got in theory if everyone executes. But the execution's absolutely just abysmally bad from 3 crucial players on that play. So I don't know coaching wise. I mean, obviously, as we spoke about before we came off on air, Ken Norton Jr. also was responsible for the inside backers. John Glenn's been there since the very start, right? But that was as an assistant. But he's been coaching inside linebacker types for since 2012. Same kind of defensive front structure and system as back then. They have a few different coverages now, but that was a very basic thing which they used to do all the damn time, that type of play call. Maybe didn't face as much 13 personnel, which was that touchdown. But, when you look at how the Steelers were able to run the football, you look at how the Titans were able to run the football. I mean, remember we talked about the success rate, like they're 95th percentile. In this past game, the Steelers had an 85th percentile success rate. On early downs, it was 91st percentile. Oh, sorry. They had a 91st percentile success rate rushing the football. Yeah, that was a mistake. So 91st versus 95th percentile. But they were equally basically as successful running the ball. And there's back-to-back weeks now where Seattle, it's all well and good saying, well, yeah, maybe they did run some coverages to stop the explosive talents of DeAndre Hopkins, of AJ Brown. I don't think they did this against the Steelers. They lined up in the Steelers basically came out there and said, we're going to run multiple tight end looks. We're going to play bully ball. We're tougher than you. You are light up front. That again leads into personnel again, and maybe we should talk about the front office. And we're just going to dominate you. We're going to physically dominate you. Now, when I previewed this game, what was interesting is the Steelers had a kind of a propensity to be, they were 11 personnel heavy team. They really didn't lean on multiple tight end looks that much. So while Pete Carroll says it's all well and good, Pete Carroll saying they did exactly what we expected them to do. You know, there was no surprises there. Like there was nothing fancy with their run concepts. I do think I need to look at like more recent games. I'm trying to find the info here, Griff, to see if the Steelers had kind of been evolving into this multiple tight end stuff in like the back half of the season or not. But Griff, it looked like on paper at least. Well, not on paper, on the tape, on the broadcast footage that Seattle was. They had the right calls in theory to stop that, but they got physically manhandled and they didn't seem to.
It's not a problem with like, it's not a problem of like, are there enough tools in the playbook? You know, it's you know, a little bit of
They called a bit of everything that game, really, didn't they?
Yeah. True. And it's like they the problem is, a little bit. Well, I mean, like, sure, the timeliness of this and that, but I think it's like they don't have other structures to like have a game plan where they become something else in terms of their base structure, not necessarily all the calls that follow, but like the specific layering calls. But like Ken Norton Jr., for example, could have a 4-3 over game, a 4-3 under game. He could have a 3-4 bear game. He could have the 6-2 look if he needed it. Like, it was not a big deal for him to install this week to week. Clint Hurt only has the 2-4-5 and then the 3-4 base, which is really like a reduced over front or a reduced under front. And then from there, he doesn't have at least front wise, he doesn't have enough supplementary calls to get action at problem spots, to help out the edges, to keep the corners out of the run fit. It's just stuff that they shed from the playbook, stuff that was good, stuff that I had no reason to believe they would stop doing, because if anything, a lot of that stuff relies on the D-line. So if anything, I assumed they promoted Hurt because he was probably behind some of those changes, right? Or behind some of those change-up calls. And then it all just goes out the window. But like beyond that, like in coverage, like they have all the play calls you need. They're not, it's how it's being coached, how it's being game planned. I think how the players are alert for what's coming at them and when. That's what's going out the window. Like the whole explosive thing, like what we're seeing right now, people keep saying, looking at the end results, keep going, well, the same old thing. What we've seen the last 2 years under Clint Hurt in the aggregate is nowhere close to what we've seen before. It's just not anything close. Like even last year, when the final 12 weeks of the season, they were the 7th ranked pass defense. Their one weakness was the occasional explosive. Like they were still giving up stuff over the top when they did have like the thing stopping them from being first instead of, 7th. If you were to isolate, well, what was their remaining weakness? Why aren't they better than 7th? Why aren't they 6th, 5th, or 4th? It was because they were busting stuff downfield occasionally. So, and then this year, it's just they're bad at even the things they were good at last year and against the pass, and they're even worse defending the deep ball. That's never been a problem for the Pete Carroll defense, and it's not because they were playing a vanilla, prevent shell before. They were just playing their rules. They were just playing defense the way they should. And that has completely gone out the window. Do you look at Carl Scott? I have no idea. What was it? Was Andre Curtis secretly making lemonade the whole time with injured corners and whoever at strong safety because of Jamal's injuries and stuff, and still preventing deep balls being from being completed? I have no idea. All I know is that their front structure, their versatility has shriveled into nothing. The multiplicity up front is gone. I think the core structure of the main stuff is well-intentioned and smart. The whole point is, can you stuff the run with a too high shell from a front that accentuates your pass rush? That was the goal this year. And they achieved that they can get there. Like the proof of concept was there the first 5 weeks, but it was only there if they had enough talent and enough spots. And then when that talent went out the window, it evaporated. And it's important to go ahead.
Even then, I don't know if they had the stuff off of that still. We were saying each week, like, it's so impressive how they're doing this, but this player made a great play. or when Nwosu went down, we were like, okay, well, we probably need to see a bit more of an evolution here. And they've been out evolved and out layered, and it's troubling to me because Pete Carroll speaks in the off season about how he's dived into a scheme that he hasn't in a while, and he's got himself really involved, and his kind of influence on 2023's like overall like core direction is obvious with how they're running the over front and that sort of stuff, how they kind of turn their back on some of the Fangio things up front, which weren't working for them last year, and are doing it this year, and how they move up front, how they get those too high looks to fit the run. And I'm sure, the layers beyond that maybe were somewhat there, but then you have to kind of see how the season develops to decide on a pathway. And historically, Pete Carroll teams have been really good at kind of seeing what they're bad at and almost stripping it all the way back into a very kind of precise, refined, but honed in direction that is effective at correcting some of the problems of the year. But under Hurt, that hasn't happened. And it almost feels like, how much do you hold your defensive coordinator's hand through all of this process that is ultimately the job of a DC, not a head coach?
Right.
I don't know.
And you still judge Pete there because he's responsible for the hire, but like defensive coordinators have a job for a reason. Like you have to be able to delegate to them. So Pete's the criticism of Pete is that he has to make the right hire to trust the guy that he delegates to, and he's had to step in a few too many times, I think, more than he would otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
That middle stretch of the season, when they got really good, like run and pass, even controlling for opponent. I mean, they have to show that they can manage. They shouldn't be this bad when they regress talent.
What games were that, Griff? Like the middle stretch you referring to?
It was the Giants game through to the right before the Ravens game.
Right. So weeks 6 to 9, 8.
Well, and really, you can even go before that because they were like
the first 8 weeks of the season. There's a hellish Rams thing, in terms of pass D, third downs. They screwed that up, and there's some mental stuff there, like as in psychological stuff, where it sounds like the locker room was ridiculously like complacent at halftime. Which is a discussion on Pete Carroll, which we'll have to have as well. But in terms of the defense, other than that, they were pretty damn good.
Like the Lions game, the Panthers game, they had good run defense all 3 downs. They had good pass defense early downs, and then just had a horrible third down game plan 2 weeks in a row. The following 5 games, they simply improve on third downs. Nothing else changes. The Nwosu gets hurt, and everything falls apart.
But also
not just Nwosu, but that's just the line of demarcation.
And so when we talk about, schematic versatility, part of that is nickel bear. So like penny defense, nickel bear. Have we seen that this season?
We saw a little bit in the Giants game, right? And then I think a little bit.
I think that was base.
Oh. Yeah, maybe we haven't.
Yeah, I think that was base. And same against the Ravens. They ran a bit of base, but they... Oh, we saw it against Dallas. Like 1 or 2 snaps of like nickel... Okay. Nickel bear with Jamal Adams playing like the weak side backer.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's a bit of a mess. So where was I going to take? Oh yeah. So just to finish up on the Steelers game in terms of their multiple tight end usage on the season, they've used 11 personnel on 74% of their snaps. 12 personnel on 18% of the snaps. So 2 tight end looks on with 1 running back, 18% of the snaps. In this past game, Pat Freiermuth takes 64% of the snaps. Washington, 62%. And then third tight end Hayward with 31%. So they're upping in this game. Clearly, the multiple tight end And why wouldn't they when it was working so well? Like Seattle just didn't. They just got moved off the ball. And I think part of that as well is, you're without Jamal Adams, right? Seattle's stock answer to 2 tight end looks has been, okay, we're going to stay in the same nickel over front. We're going to have the same structure with the same answers, right? Mm-hmm. But what we will do is, rather than play Devin Witherspoon in the slot, we'll play our big nickel. Jamal Adams is the nickel. Well, he's out for the year now, probably. He's on IR. Something we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. But he's on injured reserve. And so who's your big nickel? Well, are you just going to ride with Spoon? But are you going to commit in a different way? You can't play Devin Bush there because he's needed as the weak side, the inside backer spot with Jordan Brooks out for the game. Who is it going to be? And I think in this game it was Spoon, wasn't it? He's listed as playing 49% of the snaps. Who else came in as the nickel? It was just Spoon, wasn't it?
It was just Burns and Spoon that played nickel, I think.
Oh yeah, but yes. Sorry, yeah, Burns has 12% snaps. So they basically just did what they'd been doing, and they got moved. And it just feels like they're very slow on defense. To when an issue's been exposed by a team, they don't have that extra answer. But also, they're never proactive in, or very rarely proactive in having an answer
and fixing it. And it's a theme that is, even if we keep bringing up Ken Norton Jr. only because
it's the most recent example.
It's to compare and contrast. People always said that his defense was vanilla and static and everything, and that always confused me, because anytime they had a problem area, whether it was with their base stuff or their change-up calls, he would eventually have calls, whether they worked or not, were specifically designed to attack 1 or 2, 3 concepts that are used to exploit something structurally in their defense. So if nothing else, he's proactive. If nothing else, he's a problem solver. He plugs holes. I think his problem was the core structure. He took a while to find it. Once he found it, then he got the change-up calls in there to attack the problems of that newfound structure, and then it was all fine. For 8-9 weeks of the year, they'd have a top 10 defense like 3-4 years in a row. But it was just getting started right. I think Clint has a base structure that makes sense, that requires a lot of talent, unfortunately, like any defense really does. But then he didn't have any change-up calls for it, and then he didn't have enough structure, enough alternative structure. It's not enough defense up front.
His one thing is slant the either the weekend and send the the nickel or the down safety, play 2 high behind that or 1 high, or slant the strong end and 3 tech, send the strong safety or the nickel, play 2 high or 1 high, and occasionally the inside back would go.
Yeah,
but it's very like limited. And also, like, if that's what you're doing at the start of the year, NFL teams are pretty good. Like, they will understand what you're doing. They haven't. The only cool thing was the Eagles game where it's an on-the-day adjustment. Like, even just having I said we saw it, the nickel bear look against the Cowboys. Why isn't that in your game plan every single week, where you just dabble in that slightly as hey, it's first down. They might run the ball here a bit more. We can still find ways to get pass rush out of this angle up front. Why don't we just do that? They're just so they're basically, they have very untapped like minds of or buckets, as you like to use, Griff. They've just got rid of like an entire 2-3 buckets of like front versatility, and then kind of further answers to problems.
They've gotten rid of stuff that has worked. like any unit, you can probably, good or bad, you can isolate things that worked and things that don't work.
And it's important.
They just
and it's important to understand why they run this over front from nickel so often. It's because, as Picard told me, but way back in the Buccaneers game in Germany, It's because they want to get the pass rush angles for their guys. They want the outside backers to be accented. They want to fly up the field. They want to get good pass rush. But that's all well and good, but you can get good pass rush out of different fronts too. And you're not just sitting in the same look each time. And okay, you will move in and out of it. And okay, you can bring slightly different pressures, but you are posing different problems. And that brings me, Griff, on to when you have a gaping B gap bubble on plays, or you keep getting run to the solid side of the tight end side of the formation, and it's all well and good saying you've got a guy there to slant in, but he's ultimately, or you've got a guy who can set an edge or be fast up the field, but ultimately he's 260 pounds or lower, right? Because the Seahawks have rostered, and I have a concern. It's back-to-back years now of them. The front office has rostered players and acquired players in a way that doesn't really match what the defensive coaching staff have planned for the year. So,
right,
2022. Wow, it's a while ago now, but
coming off
2022, they seem to roster. They rostered players who weren't comfortable really using the two gap techniques that were run up front. So much so that the players themselves came out and said, hey, we would like to return to playing one gapping. And then they did. And it worked in the bear stuff. In the nickel stuff, they were still two gapping. They never really got on the hang of it up front. They then let a lot of those defensive front players go. Montgomery says, except for Shelby Harris, kind of right. I mean, yeah, but yeah. 2023, Seattle's planning to run the same nickel forefront look, but with a slight change to the one technique, making him a one gap type of player more often. Their base stuff is, rather than playing like bare fronts, they're over and under, but again, kind of more one gappy in style. And they roster basically guys who are on the edge really, really light because they think, oh, it's a 3-4. We need guys who can rush or cover. That's correct. But Seattle doesn't run those base looks that often.
Right.
And if you look at all the good teams who run nickel forefronts as their main thing, like Seattle does, they have absolute dogs who are big and long and strong, Bosa with the 49ers. The New York Jets are an interesting example, Griff, because they have Franklin Myers.
Yeah.
Who's I think he's 288, 290. But they all really have that kind of, pardon, Griff?
Who moves really well. Basically same idea as Draymond Jones, but Draymond doesn't move in space like Franklin Myers does.
Yeah, well, I've just seen a comment there, Griff, which we can talk about. But they don't have those kind of that bigger edge type. Now, when Uchenna Nwosu got hurt, that obviously, as we've said, it completely robbed them of their rare instincts player who's able to take his shots against the run, really understands edge play and the type of block he's getting and how to stop the run and take clean shots into backfield, blow plays up, make kind of...
Yeah, and we should say Nwosu was good in LA, but he was having career years in Seattle. He's never played better football than last year and this year.
As continuing his ascension. And then Leonard Williams arrives. That gives them kind of a more actual early down three technique because the front office made a big splash with Draymond Jones, but in Denver, and yeah, they're playing with the two gap in kind of nose tackle rather than the one gap dude, but they're playing in the over front and he can't hold up on early downs as a three tech defending the run. Really, he's kind of a survive, and yet that's Seattle's plan. Even with them stunting, that's kind of wild. But anyway, I digress. To get Leonard Williams, that means Draymond Jones can kind of be the bigger edge type for Seattle on the edge and try to alleviate some of those issues. And he's done okay doing that. He's had experience at outside backer before in Denver too, but it was more in odd fronts, not even. But really, to start the year, they didn't have the defensive front stuff that kind of matched what the defensive staff was planning, which suggests to me that, however those two sides are communicating, the front office with the coaching staff, is kind of getting lost in translation a bit. Because what happens, I imagine, and I have no idea, but it's very easy to imagine a scenario where they go, hey, well, this year we're going to just get the one gap players who tick, brilliant. We're still running 3-4. And then, so we need our edge players need to be able to rush and cover. Well, that's great, but you don't actually ever run
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a handful of base snaps in a game.
It's like a lag effect going on.
Complete lag effect. And even back when Seattle used to run an under front, so like 3-4 personnel, there's a very good reason they had a Leo designated pass rush dude who was your pass rusher, and then a Sam who was like your designated drop back into coverage dude. Like the lag effect is this year they weren't even planning on running bear, where it's kind of extra advantageous to have the guys who can rush or drop or cover. And the only real reason you do it, it's especially important to have that versatility, is nickel bear, which they haven't run a single snap of this year. The kind of nickel bear look was actually like a nickel under against Dallas, as well as against the Eagles when they kind of BS their way into it. So basically, that's also a bit of a concerning problem when it comes to the defense. Griffin, this past game, they gave up 10 explosive plays in total. We've talked about the run plays. Of those 10 explosive plays, 4 of them were via the run game. So that means 6 of them came in the passing game. What did you see out of the passing game?
In the passing game, I remember there's Michael Jackson in man coverage, and he just gives up that huge deep corner route, like that flag route almost, a deep flag route. He just overplays what he thinks is a cross, and it bends
on
back.
On the man coverage.
Yeah, it was a blitz, six man rush.
And that's tough because he's playing for the ball to come out, and Rudolph, to his credit, stands in there, shows the advantageous nature of being tall, and just throws it to space. And was that a Pickens catch?
Yeah, where he like somersaults after.
Yeah, Pickens made an unbelievable catch to lean out and get that. It's throwing to space.
You have a Trey Brown missed tackle in the flat, just the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
you have the one seam route where I think Julian Love doesn't. I think he has an assigned match, but I think he thinks he's sailing under an out route, and it's an out and up, and he just guesses wrong. I don't think Woolen had to play a midpoint because I think there was a seam match assigned, but it was from a reduced stack. So Woolen is like really conflicted. That's almost more of a scheme beater, if anything else. If it's not on Love, otherwise I think it's on Love squarely. Then you have a deep over route to Bobby Wagner, not to Bobby Wagner, but a deep over route where Bobby Wagner needs to robot the crosser, and he just gets sucked in on play action. Just horrible, just classic. The worst thing that can happen to your defense on that play, something they've been good at forever. And just a horrible play from Bobby, and like another, like, oh yeah, they're really missing Jordan Brooks type of thing. So I mean, you've got Love, you've got Brown, you've got Jackson, you got Bobby giving up just huge air yard explosives on plays that are really simple. Even it's just bad. It's just shitty play. I'm sure that there's another one that I'm blanking on. But they weren't like getting. I mean, there was some like getting like dinked and dunked there, here and there, but that stuff wouldn't have hurt them if they stayed on top like they did against the Eagles. And come to think of it, I think of all those plays except for Trey Brown's missed tackle, those were all one high, cover 3, and so except for the man coverage example, I mean,
yep.
In the box because you can't fit the runs from too high, and then you don't really have the personnel at the second level out there on the field to run too high, and that's kind of what really good to run cover 3. That's what really good cover 3 coverage is built on, is your second level. I mean, obviously it starts at the deep middle safety, but like that's why they attack the second level. If you have a good deep middle safety and corners who don't get beat deep in one-on-one situations down the sideline. Like I said earlier, I mean, Bush can do some things with a combination of Bush, Wagner, Burns, and Love is just it's a horrible second level to run cover 3 with in the aggregate. So
yeah, and they've been more effective playing cover 3 with lesser talent, you could argue in
the past. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I don't know how much you can work around Bobby though. Like that's a huge
and
problem.
that is a big thing, and we need to watch the tape. But the last few weeks, it's been very clear that schematically they're trying to hide him, and help him, because they've been, and Carroll referenced a couple of adjustments in the past game. There's been a lot less of the 2 inside backers just pure zone dropping, playing strong hook, weak hook curl like rules, meaning basically Bobby gets matched up on the back most of the time, which may sound disastrous, but remember these teams that have McCaffrey, it's kind of just keeping him in that kind of north-south tunnel, and not having to relate to a receiver or expose his change of direction, having to drop back, come back down, or break to the side, melt with the quarterback, all that sort of stuff. So that's something to kind of look back on over the season. But the coverage this game, they just got... I think they were probably due a game like this. I think they've been getting away with it for a bit. And when you can't stop the run, then, it's going to hurt your pass D, and kind of vice versa, really. But they can. It's just super disappointing. They try. It almost felt to me that they tried to do too many things. And this is just a watching live thing, but they were doing a lot of different things, throwing a lot of different stuff out there. And that could have been to a point that, it reminds me of that first Rams game of the week 1, where they were doing so many different things. And it's like, just do like a few select things well, rather than throw lots of stuff out there. And that may sound like a contradiction of what we're saying about lacking front versatility. It's more like there's so many different types of calls. Or like in a game plan, you can hone them down week to week and vary them for the opponent. Now that also may have been like the different types of challenges that Pittsburgh presented by going heavy and then light as well. But I guess it was just a case of they were not doing very well at anything, so they kept trying to find something they were good at. I don't know.
Right. It did feel like that. And even when you pirate, you're kind of admitting the fact that you can't just line up and play the blocks. So you're trying to throw action at it, speed up the running back, and make an easy tackle. But then on the fallback, the second level isn't leveraging itself right up into their new gap. Stuff like that. And
stunting a pirate being stunt of 3 tech and the outside edge inside a gap.
Right. And then once you do get reached, like you said, Matty, trying too hard, then they go backdoor again. And then the third player who would come in and like a corner overlapping, a corner folding in, Quandre trying to fit off of that guy, then they mess up the fixer, right? So just a mess across the board. It was poor discipline. They weren't being, with the expense of just sounding like a armchair hard ass. They weren't playing physical enough. But it's just the players out there weren't good enough, and the coaching staff couldn't put them in ideal positions. So oversimplification, but that's really what was going on.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of all bad with the defense. There's not much room for cope other than, Jordan Brooks is a really solid player. They kind of have to prioritize him. Griff, do you want to talk about the off-season direction for the defense, leave the off-season direction to the end, and briefly cover this offense from the Steelers game?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
okay. So offensively, Griff, this kind of played out how it was expected. When I was previewing it, I was like, the Steelers are without... It's either they were missing 3 DBs, 4 linebackers yesterday, or 3 linebackers, 4 DBs. Either way, they were very, very light. And so, in that sense, I was like, they should be able to move the ball, should be able to pass. Seattle has talented receivers. Geno Smith is kind of on it. But I was very afraid because the Steelers have a very talented front. The NFL sack leader, who, by the way, managed to boost his sack total even further this past game. And the offensive lines had the struggles, and it kind of became the nightmarish game for the Seahawks because obviously Abraham Lucas went out, wasn't able to return, jarred his knee towards the end of the half. And then Evan Brown goes out with a concussion. So Olu Timmy comes in, and suddenly you're down your two offensive linemen when the offensive line's already kind of been struggling a bit as well. Geno Smith on the day, it was very obvious he was kind of having to duck and weave, use the pocket, step up. It felt very on the edge, but it was manageable because he was managing it. And then it's kind of the straw which breaks the camel's back, where he gets... Charles Cross, wide 9 technique, always been a kind of the way to get at him. He just loses TJ Watt, sack fumble from Geno Smith. Could he have got the ball out quicker? I need to watch the tape on that. But, he's holding the ball a bit. Think about that Dallas game. Guys were getting rushed left, right, and center, giving up pressure, etc., etc. But the ball was out so damn fast, it didn't matter. Yeah. And his blindside had been good in this game up to that point, so maybe he just a bit too much kind of belief in it. And
it was Nick Herbig. It wasn't their two best pass rushers.
It was, right.
Yeah.
Why did I think it was TJ Watt?
Well, he did get some hits on him.
Yeah. Hit 8 times and pressured 23 times per PFF. Thank you, Connor, for posting that. I mean, that is ridiculous. This guy's a pocket passer. And again, you can call into question not just the fact that the Seahawks are, the offensive line's, struggling, but also the positions they're putting their offensive line in. And the run game today, in that game, 88 yards on 15 total carries, 5.9 yards per carry. And it wasn't that close a game, but it was for the first 3-ish quarters. Like, why didn't they run the football more when they're having success with it? I guess you point towards the kind of fact that the Steelers couldn't cover anyone, and they were wildly open. But you kind of have to protect for so long, and it becomes a risk. And again, it just doesn't feel that balanced, even though it should have been a balanced game. Although I can kind of understand it from a game plan standpoint, but ultimately they got punished. But a lot of this grit. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, like the negative plays started occurring when they had to pass, when the game state was starting to get away from them a little bit. I mean, all in all, like the 290 yards, Geno was really efficient in the aggregate. I mean, they were moving the ball pretty well. 23 points on 9 drives is a pretty good day points wise. The average drives in a game are 12. So had the defense gone off the field, they scored more points in all likelihood. I honestly thought that the game plan was pretty good. I did kind of streamline or speed run the tape. I liked a lot of what Waldron called. There's a lot of, like, the quick game had full field progressions. It wasn't just half field. And that was only when they did quick game. They predominantly built out of 5-step concepts. A lot of, in-breaking routes. The Steelers packed. I thought the Steelers second level played pretty well, just for the most part, but Geno and the receivers just played better. Like, they would challenge some tight zone windows. Geno was incredible in the pocket under duress, gave those plays life. So it was really, they were down guys. They are the 8th ranked pass defense, though, and a lot of that's going to be their pass rush, right? So they were able to be just good enough up front to allow Geno and the receivers to do all that they can do. And I think ultimately it's a vote of confidence, I think, in the general outlook for the offense. I think the O-line. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting to me, Griff, as you kind of start to talk about the O-line and how this is an overall vote of confidence of the offense. But on third down, they kind of had their issues again. So they only go 3 of 9 converting. Now, again, well, actually, I don't know about the last drive, because did the sack fumble happen on third down? There might be some funky game state things. But anyway, they went 3 of 9, so 33.3%, below that 50% number. And then the offense had 8 explosive plays on the day, right?
Yeah.
But none of them come on third down. And maybe that's typical league-wide, but second and 6, second and 10, first and 10, first and 10, first and 10, second and 6, first and 10, first and 10. Those are all very, other than that second and 10, those are all hyper like balanced. There's no clear run pass kind of tell on those. So
well, and the there some of the second levels, their third down calls, the third and longs get killed by the pass rush, so he has to check it down. There's the one miss to Tyler Lockett where he overthrows it and the pressure's coming quickly, so that's pass rush, that's protection affecting it. Then there's one where they're just a yard short, so like they very easily, with slightly better O-line play, could have gone 5 for 9 this game. That's only to say that I thought the game plan, the structure of what they were trying to do made sense, but it was the limits of the O-line showing up again. I still think generally from weeks 10 up until before this game, like their third downs are truly improving. And I think that structure, the process carried over into this game. It was just execution prevented more. But yeah, they were still so explosive on early downs. And that was without throwing like a go ball. That was without throwing like a huge post route, you know. They were crossing routes, you know, stuff like that where they were able to kind of access that like 25 or that 18 to 25, 30 range, you know. That was where they kind of cooked that day. Throwing, you know, 25 yard out breaking out routes and stuff and corner routes. I thought they used the tight ends really well. Like I thought, you know, the red zone game plan was even good. Like DK bobbled that one because it was well defended, but that was them kind of figuring out their rhythm on those short fades to where DK can basket catch it over the shoulder. So I don't know. It's frustrating, but I think it was a good offensive day, and like it was just kind of another confirmation of like, all right, the since week 10 thing is real. Since week 10, Geno's the 6th ranked quarterback by passing EPA. So they're in a good spot.
Yeah. It's this loss, if we have to talk about it, and as Griff deals with his lovely dogs, it's not. You can't put it on the offense. Let me catch up with the chat while Griff is and it's just frustrating because I worry, like from my perspective, I do worry about how they handle the Geno Smith moving forward, because there's just a few things, like if you had a slightly healthier offensive line or you had a bit better offensive line depth, and don't get me wrong, O-line depth is poor across the league. If you had a bit more offensive balance or reliable like run game to lean on at times, I think the offense can be very, very good. And that since week 10 improvements, like a real thing to kind of hang their hat on, so to say. But yeah, let me catch up with the chat. Griff, you all good?
Yep. Dogs are eating and happy.
They're upset. Understandable, really. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, 5011. That's a kind comment. Griff, have you seen this support?
Yeah, that's very kind of them. Thank you, 5011.
Yep, love that.
Chat,
love
we
that.
love you.
Yep.
We love all of you.
It'd be funny. Chat, would you turn on us? What point would you turn on us? We got close with Cody Barton. I think there was definitely elements.
They were almost insurrections. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
The chat got a little upset with us about Bobby Wagner. That was very early on because it was kind of connected to Cody.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, you don't remember?
No.
Either way.
Christopher, I'm glad you got over. Glad you got off work. Yeah. Right, Griff. That's kind of all we can really say.
Yeah.
But you did some tweeting, didn't you?
Me?
Yep, you did. You definitely did. Huh.
I don't remember that.
Oh dear.
All right,
that's never a good sign.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
Let's get into chat. This is our chance to hold Griff accountable for his tweeting through it. Now, a lot of you may have already been in the replies. I see these have got great interaction, Griff. Oh my gosh. So let's start with the offense as I get the tweets up. There's no way, right? I was thinking about this, right? You know X, right?
Yeah.
You know it's called X.
Yeah.
Did he do it so it's called Chitta? Like, is it all?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think he just thinks it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, X is quite cool, but
Definitely.
in like a cologne or yeah, I'm not gonna go there. Don't worry. Right, here we go. Right, so let's make that slightly larger, shall we? This is Griffin's plan to save the Seattle Seahawks. I do not endorse this, although I do podcast with Griffin and, I've got to know him over the years. I do not share his beliefs necessarily. Disassociation. Griff, your first move is extend Geno Smith, one, to keep him around longer, but also to clear up cap space for some moves. Now, what I would say on that is that Geno Smith's contract extension that he was signed to, it included like quite a few incentives, right?
Yeah.
Will he have hit those incentives?
I don't think all of them. I think he needed 30 touchdowns. I don't think he has the volume. Injuries kind of derailed.
Yeah, and I don't know how, like, we were told that it was $40 million fully guaranteed when he signed it. And then he would earn $28 million this first year of the deal. And then there's $30 million in incentives, right?
Right.
And, it could be making the Pro Bowl. I don't think he's going to make the Pro Bowl. Obviously, Seattle making the playoffs is less likely now, like significantly less likely. You think 30 touchdowns would be a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? John Schneider definitely seems like a 30 touchdown type of guy, right?
Yeah.
Is that even impressive? Like I mean, he's not even going to hit 25 touchdowns, is he? So
I don't. Touchdown discourse doesn't move me at all. It's meaningless.
Right. That's meaningful given Geno Smith only has 18 touchdowns to 9 interceptions this season.
Well, like I'd rather capture that by just looking at what are your stats inside the red zone. I don't care if you're throwing the touchdown or they're running it in. It doesn't make a difference to me.
Sure. Well, that's good to know. Thanks, Griff.
No
right
problem.
then. So I think this is a big thing for me. I think you have to do that.
You think you have to extend him?
I think you have to keep him around.
Yeah. I mean, he's the premise is that Geno is good. Like I think that Geno is like the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the league. I think you've got, S tier in Mahomes, then you've got tier 1 talents like Allen and Herbert, and then tier 2 talents like Lamar. I put Lamar up in tier 1. Then like Stafford, Burrow, Dak, and then right after those guys, I think Geno's the line of demarcation. I think Hurts is after him. I think Cousins is right after him. Like intrinsically, that's how good I think Geno is. Like I think he's that caliber of a player. And so the principle here is that the quarterback is good, and like that's the premise. And then I'm aware of how old he is. My thing is operate with a 3 to 5 year outlook with him every year, resetting that 3 to 5 year outlook. So long as the year he's coming off of, he's still a good player, not regressed, and physically intact, and if he gives you this caliber of play and you told me he could last to 40 at the same level, then I'm like, all right, he can be the quarterback of the future. Give me 8 years, give me 7 more years of Geno, and I don't care. That's how I'm operating. And he's going to be cheaper than most quarterbacks because the league still doesn't know if they believe in him or not. So
what's the point though, Griff, of I don't really get, like, how much lower can you get this cap number if you're going to, like, what sort of extension are you looking at?
Yeah, good point. I have no idea.
You just want to keep him forever. Just
well, no,
play it like Madden, where you
somebody
just keep
somebody
extending.
mentioned on Twitter that an extension could open up space, and I don't know anything about contracts. So
Okay, right. This is this. Yeah, as we maybe transition to more overload off-season stuff, you chat will be privy to us learning along the way, because I don't think I mean, Griff, you've admitted it. I also am not an expert in contract. Just make it work.
yeah,
Duh.
and then yeah,
Extend Damian Lewis.
the premise here is that I think the O-line is good if it's healthy. So I also value continuity. I mean, I really think the offense.
Does that mean with Phil Haynes at right guard, Griff?
No, I would move on from Haynes. I would try to. I would the position I would target is right guard in the draft. Center could be Olu Oluwatimi. It could be Evan Brown again. I mean, I don't think Brown is a disaster. Again, I think this O-line is more than good enough if just the starters or 80% of them are playing together and they can play together for a prolonged period of time. If they can't, then that means you need to start talking about drafting replacements at tackle too. It's like you need to be able to operate with some assumptions here. Any team needs to. But the operating premise here really is to keep it moving and make minor improvements, because I think that if the O-line is even 75, 80% of what it should be, we're talking about a top 7 offense. They've shown that for stretches already. So like what I'm saying is that the offense is fine. It's so the moves kind of follow there. I mean, what drastic things need to occur? If you want to move on from Lockett, like, all right, fine. If you want a better left guard, okay, fine. But that means drafting a guard really high, and people don't like spending high draft picks on quote unquote non-premium positions. So they only have so much money here, Can't go wild in free agency.
Yeah, and like Damian Lewis, he's 26, so a pretty solid age. I don't think they have enough draft picks to like have to fill 2 starting spots on the interior of the offensive line, or at least comfortably do that. I mean, I think it's hard enough to do it once, depending where you're going to pick, right? And if we're saying it's right guard, then you need to kind of secure Lewis. I also don't think. I mean, it'll be interesting, but has he played well enough, and has he been available enough to earn like a worrying amount in free agency? I don't think so.
Yeah, the availability is the biggest concern. I think the contract will reflect that. I don't think he'll sign for more than like $6 million per. And then I think he's like a league average guard, but it's the average. Most guards are not that good in the league right now. It's probably the worst position in the league. And I think he's probably, he's average guard, and I'd rather just keep as much intact that works as possible. I don't think he's amazing or anything. I'm not a Damian Lewis guy. I just think he's fine. So
yeah. And I mean, is that right that he's only missed 1 game this year?
Yeah.
So I don't know why I thought that was more. Maybe just because he's been a bit banged up, but
he's been on the injury report a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next move is interesting to me. So you'd bring back Evan Brown, who this season was obviously signed in free agency to a 1-year, $2.25 million deal contract. And he's now, he'll be turning 28 next year. And you would bring back the center and let him compete with Olu Oluwatimi, who will be entering his 2nd year of NFL football.
Yeah. Kind of same premise. He's cheap. At worst, he's good depth. I think he's had bad games at center this year. I think he's had good games at center. I don't think there's any risk to bringing him back. I think the continuity can only help if Olu is better, then he's better. Fine, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, really, that's one which is if Evan Brown doesn't return to Seattle, it's almost it could indicate that they're really high on Olu, and they think he's ready after like a year.
Sure.
But it could also be like a case of the player saying, I don't want to like do this again. I will go elsewhere. And maybe there's a slightly better spot for him where he's like has more assuredness of being a starter. He's given like better certainty that he'll be able to just start rather than having what would be an even tougher battle for him to win this offseason. But then has he played well enough to actually earn that spot around the league? I don't know about that. So, right. Now, the next point, draft the right guard mid-round to compete with Bradford. I think that's pretty essential, isn't it? It could be that Bradford wins out, but there's some kind of worrying, like, not just rawness in his game, like just the heavy feet. Like, I don't know how much that can be improved on.
Yeah. I thought he was better in college, or I thought he would be better in the pros than he was in college, but that's not been the case. So, I mean, we'll both welcome, anyone would welcome a year 2 jump, but I'm not sure it will happen. So,
yeah, they need to do that. And I just think almost coming out of that draft with 2 interior offensive line just to keep the churn going.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
if we're saying Phil Haynes is going, is a really good idea. I don't know how high you take them. It's good. I mean, you've put mid-round here. It is good, as we spoke about before, that you can get like good to excellent interior offensive linemen in that part of the draft, given Seattle's without their second-round pick. And annoyingly, the Saints won, the Broncos won yesterday. So that pick they're getting from Denver or New Orleans is going to be less high than maybe originally thought, or less good for Seattle. So now you've put extend Tyler Lockett. Now, again, we don't proclaim to be contract experts, to smooth out the cap. They restructured him, didn't they? So I guess is there logic in that? Like, what? I
have no idea.
His current contract runs till 33 years old. So
yeah, that's me shooting from the hip. Wait, so how many years does he have left on his deal? 2 more?
I don't know how you extend that. No, because look.
Yeah, so they actually, yeah, you're right. I was thinking he could be cut potentially, but they can't cut 2024, so he's playing on that basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck with that, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're in the chat and you're getting angry at us, let us know.
Yep. So
I guess you could do that. You could just cut him then.
Yeah, after 2024. That's probably what ends up happening. I mean, I think he's still a really good player. I mean, if he's regressed, he's what, 90% of what he used to be? I mean, he's really important. So, and you know, whatever, if he regresses further, then JSN can pick up the slack and he can just be your wide receiver 3.
Sure.
You know, who cares?
Who cares,
bro?
Draft a wide receiver tight end day 2. Why a wide receiver?
I don't know. I mean, if there's like a really good player there, like a really good player that we all agree is good, and it's just kind of enticing, like, whoa, you could take that guy. And then it helps get ahead of moving on from Lockett, right? It kind of clarifies that decision to make after next year.
Yeah.
But then I also threw / tight end because I'm just really saying, like, keep adding to the pass catchers. And then I think tight end would be ideal because that kind of gets ahead of what they do at tight end this offseason with Disley's contract and then 2 free agents in Colby and Noah Fant. And then just the general thing of they're transitioning to 11 personnel. I don't think they're trying to maintain having an ensemble tight end group. I think they're going to go like one guy who's going to play most of the snaps, then you have depth. So
there is real value in that. Yep. Yeah, the tight end situation in free agency is interesting. And as you've said, let Noah Fant walk. I think the juice isn't worth the squeeze there.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly
undoubtedly a talented player, but very inconsistent. And there's certain things like, you know, we spoke about it before we came on, but real struggles playing against physical coverage like press or just guys looking to play catch on him where he's a tight end. He's going to get roughed up. And I just don't know, like, you know, you can get him on a deep over routes like they did against Dallas and it looks really good. And there's an argument they should have done that or found a way to do that more this year, but
sure. Well, the other
it's
thing
kind of a limit. Yeah,
I think he works best in a heavy tight end offense because that means he's not relied upon to be the primary
do
blocker.
the whole thing. Yeah.
And as they transition away from 12 next year, and they're going to run into even more 11 personnel, it's more critical that remaining tight end in 11 personnel is a little bit more balanced skill set wise. And
so it could be that this, I mean, if you remember Will Dissly, when before did he do his patella tendon twice?
He's been
absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And whatever it was, he was a day 3 pick, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So it could be that the tight end comes day 3. But
and my thing with restructuring Dissly is not that like I'm eager to keep him, but so much as that they can save $4 million potentially. And then I think he's just a good player to have on the team, like as depth. That's all I'm viewing it as. I'm not saying Fant is worse than Dissly at all. Fant is very much better overall. It's just they're going to need someone to play snaps, and they're going to have to roster the position somehow. He just makes a lot of sense because he knows the offense. You're not going to draft 4 tight ends to fill your tight end room up. You know what I mean? So you got to get bodies in there. That's really how I'm viewing it. Like they can't pay Noah Fant $8 million. Some team will pay him $8 million. They're not going to do that with having to pay Leo Williams, Brooks, and do other things.
Oh, thanks, Bryce.
Thank you, Bryce.
We appreciate the love, Bryce. But clearly you're not watching the game. You're watching us. So what does that say? Yeah. So how old is Dissly? 27. So you're restructuring him to like spread this and this out a bit to like another year or something.
Yeah.
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 Well, are you? I don't know. Yeah. Make it work.
I mean, I think they probably cut him otherwise. And I think they tell him, like, either we're going to cut you or can you just take a $4 million pay cut or whatever. Or
how do you think Dissly's played this year, really?
I mean, he's been Will Dissly, right? I don't think he's been Will Dissly. He hasn't played very much because of injuries.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So that I don't really disagree with any of this. It seems very kind of clear-cut, the offense's direction.
Right. I mean, they've built the roster. They have their roster.
Yeah.
And, you know, if the results don't move you, well, I just say O-line injuries, and they're still the 11th ranked offense in spite of that. And then look how good they are when their starters are out there.
Yeah. And I know it's hard to say, Griff, given while you are trying to tunnel into the VMAC, it's not quite finished. Right. But we're not behind the scenes. But is there a coaching staff change there? Does Sanjay Lal, with the receiver issues, the lack of detail in the routes, the kind of strange route choices, the inability to defeat certain coverages and coverage techniques, and not being on the same page with the quarterback, kind of plagued the offense throughout the year. Does he get let go? Is there change there? Do they find someone who's been in the McVay tree or worked with Shane Waldron? I'd have to go and look if there's anyone available or anyone whose job may be at risk. Or, do they get even more expansive? Like we've seen shocks before. Like, I mean, you're not advocating for it, but could Shane Waldron get fired? Pat McPherson's been there for ages as the tight end coach. I don't really have a beef with the tight end really, other than kind of what's been an issue for the whole offense, which is just their concepts, their ideas, their sound, but the execution against certain things, their kind of ability to adjust to, a certain defensive look, whatever, has just been crap. Like we looked at it on the tape study last week when we were looking at the offense versus the Titans. They started slow, which is uncharacteristic on the season. But the reason they started slow is very similar to the whole season, which was just really kind of sloppy details. So
right.
We don't have an answer for that.
And
but we'll have to see how it plays out.
It's hard to know. Like, do they make an additional like assistant hire? Do they have to fire anybody per se? I don't know. We'll see.
Right. And could it be that, it would be surprising at this point, but possibly Dave Canales, doesn't keep his job in Tampa Bay? No, I'm talking nonsense. He absolutely would. But it could be that there's a guy who becomes available who Pete Carroll's like, okay. But I doubt it. I mean, he probably, the way he spoke about the offense, though, is clearly he's very frustrated at times. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, because he might view this as, why can't we get anything going against the 49ers? Why can't we get anything going against the Ravens? Type of thing.
Yep.
Right. I mean, he did mention, like, after the Bengals game, he did kind of drone on about the O-line. Well, we got to protect better. We got to, help him. He said that about the 49ers game. Like, he did mention O-line as much as he mentioned routes and emphasizing, skill sets and stuff. So does that point to Dickerson? I mean, how does Pete view the injuries versus the coaching of the backups? Like it all clearly, whatever he does do or doesn't do will reflect what he thinks the problem was for the marginal shortcomings.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Transitioning to the defense now, there's a certain tweet before this that I want to find. Is this a nice feeling, Griff? Like having your Twitter analyzed
being put
live on YouTube. Pardon?
That's fine.
Okay. You wouldn't have deleted the tweet, would you?
No.
Surely
what tweet
not.
Is it?
Oh, this is it. This is an absolute zinger. I love this. I love this shit. This is so good.
Yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
11:57 p.m. my time, and then a new year and a new Griff. So it took you 73 minutes, and from I would fire her at the stage where it can't be worse, all things considered, to not overeager for this, but lean that way. But that's okay. That's okay. Well, I've been there.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about it already, but why Clint Hurt gone in, a brief paragraph?
It's just kind of like an all things considered performance review. Like, the results aren't good enough. I've been on about the personnel.
It doesn't even need to be that like it's been abysmal back-to-back years with a dramatically different direction this year, influenced by Pete, right? And it's no better, and it's kind of a consistent issue thing of, well, they're still crap on third down. They still can't stop the run. They still seem heavy-handed, and they still seem to lack answers down the stretch and get out-cooled.
They have never been bad against the run before Clint Hurt at DC.
Yep.
Ever. They've been a very good run defense for a long time, to the point where people even criticize Pete for it, because, you think the run game matters too much, type of thing. So they've defended the run well from one high and too high before Clint Hurt. So, I mean, that itself is just like a fundamental like failure. Beyond that, you've got, it's primarily the backups that are busting stuff, but still, Ken Norton Jr.'s backups didn't have these colossal mistakes in the secondary. Julian Love has given up. It's honestly, people talk about Jamal. Julian Love has probably had the worst season of any Seahawks safety since Tedrick Thompson. He's given up so many completions of air yards over 10 to 12 yards. The guy almost leads the league. So, but I mean, he shouldn't be that bad though. So my thing is like, what's going on with the coaching staff? Why aren't they preparing them? And we can't know, but like, I like to play. I like to think, or rather, it's so easy to just say fire people, fire someone, fire this when you don't like the results. But I always feel like there's probably deeper things going on there. It's not that simple. We see it every year where one coach's unit for some team, whether an assistant or head coach, does terribly, and the next year they do really well, or a group do really well and they do really poorly. And it's also, it could be anything. And I don't clump together Clint Hurtt's tenure with Ken Norton Jr. A lot of people conflate those two windows. I think they're two very different things. And so the reason why I didn't want to fire Clint Hurtt last year, even though people conflated it with the results of his predecessor, my thinking was, well, anything can happen next year because it's a new age, it's a new dawn. Random things could happen. And like technically, I still hold that position. If they hold Clint Hurtt, I won't think that they are outright precluded from figuring it out. I just think that this is still enough to be like, all right, let's get another voice in there to coach it. So that's just how I view it. Like, really, my thing is, what's the utility of just saying, well, fire this guy, fire that guy, other than it feels good, you know? But at this point, I lean that way. Like, yeah, it probably would make sense, despite not thinking like, just get the guy out of there. I hate everything he does. Like, we've been pretty nuanced. I think some of the direction made sense, some of it didn't, and then, you know, the actual coaching of it is probably the most important thing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? Would you fire Clint Hurtt? Just like yes or no?
Yeah, I think the guy is I think he's a bit out of his depth. I think he needs to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess. It's just a complete I just don't it's very interesting how the last 2 years have played out. The kind of Sean Desai kind of partnership, and the lack of kind of, I mean, they just look awful coaching wise. And then this year, different thing, same thing. Yeah. But we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. It could be that all the assistants are absolutely abysmal, and there has been some really troubling things as well.
Yeah.
And for Norn, that is a good point. That's an unfortunate point.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that's true.
You know, yeah.
That's a variable.
And by the way, Clint Hurtt, like I've seen it said that he was not a good D-line coach. Like he coached the crap out of that D-line in 2020, 2021.
I don't know where that comes from.
He can coach the heck out of particularly, you know, predominantly one gapping stuff. He's very, very good at that. Good example is how he got Monet looking from. We were shocked how bad Monet looked. Like he looked unplayable, and he got him paid, like semi-paid for his position. Obviously, we haven't seen him this year after his tough ACL recovery, but he got Monet playing great football. I mean, even how Reed's revitalized this year is kind of testament to her, although he coaching the outside backers this year. I mean, Maffei's ascendancy, like Maffei's much improved, and you know, Hurt's clearly done a good job there. I'm trying to think of a good example from the earlier stuff with the interior D-line.
His standard 4-man rush plan this year is just fine. Like it's helped them even in certain areas.
Right.
I mean, early on, I mean, Jaron Reed took the transition from 1 technique to 3 technique and had his 10-yard or 10 sack season with him in 2018.
Yep.
I mean, they
Puna
lost.
Ford looked really.
Puna
Ford looked really good for a bit, didn't he?
Right. They lost Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, and they had a top 10 pass rush in 2018 with Frank Clark and Puna Ford and Quentin Jefferson. So, I mean, he's a fine D-line coach. It might have been a Peter Principle thing. You know, he might be one of those guys who, you know, give him enough and then he can do more with it, but give him less than enough and then he makes it worse than it is type of thing. You know, I mean, he like Ken Norton Jr. had good stretches and really bad stretches. It's just his bad stretches lasted longer. But those good stretches, they aren't just randomness. They're doing something right during those weeks. Why can't they sustain it is kind of the operative question. So I don't know. But again, whatever Pete does will reflect what he thinks the issue was. That doesn't mean we'll agree with it. Like, we disagreed when he fired Ken Norton Jr., right?
And that was a shock given the circumstances. And what I'd say is Pete will know at this point, especially after the loss against the Steelers, kind of to bring it full circle, he'll know what he wants to do at this point, I think.
Yeah.
I think to make a decision on that level, he'll know. Obviously, there's a review that happens, but yeah, he'll know. And they might have to move quickly if they want to get the right people in place, get a staff together. And there's a whole question, really. There's a whole question, really. Like, was this? How many more years does Pete Carroll have? Because I think, like, if his age wasn't a thing, like if he'd never coached in college, etc., I don't know how much he would get talked about because, consistent winning seasons, that sort of stuff. Well, we'll have to see if this ends in a win. 8-8 can go either way, can't it? But, he's 72, turns 73 next September. This year, you did get the occasional vibe that this was like not a last year for Pete, but certainly taking things in. I mean, that picture of him after they beat the Eagles just staring out and then asked about it. He says, I did that for my grandkids, like thinking of my grandkids.
Well, he said he was watching his grandkids play out on the field.
Oh, did he?
It's a little less ceremonious.
Oh my gosh, I completely butchered that. I'm glad you're here to correct me on that. But yeah, you just don't know how long is
real quick, Jack. I'm saying draft 1 3-down defensive lineman.
Yeah.
By 3-down, I mean a guy who plays all 3 downs.
We'll get into that. But Griff, with Pete, however long there is, people would say to play. I'm the devil's advocate here. People would say it can't be worse. All things considered, you should fire Pete Carroll. It can be worse, right?
Well, it can be worse. They're average team right now. I would say that people need to remember what they thought this core was going to do, period. They thought they were going to be in the cellar. So they're significantly better than people's expectations. And then I just don't think people are honest about what their expectations were. I think the O-line is a huge caveat to this. This year's fortune, even with the defense being as bad as it was, this O-line was that the offense could have been good enough to carry them to the playoffs easily, I think. And he's the head coach. He's part of setting the environment for the offense, for the quarterback, et cetera. So, but yeah, it's the seat is probably a little warm now. I mean, Jody's not going to fire. If you want Pete gone, like, he's not going to be fired, whether you want that or not. Jody Allen is not going to fire him so long as she's owning the team. It's too comfy of a situation for her as an owner from her perspective. He's not going anywhere if you want it or not. But as far as how we view him, yeah. So as far as how we view him, like, he's got to get the defense together next year.
I think what's really frustrating, even for me, but I really understand it for the average fan, is and it's, you're paying to go to games and stuff, is the it's the overall kind of lack of progress, is in, so much has changed and yet the same issues, right? And we're at the same point in the season where now the Seahawks have lost against the Steelers. They are relying once more on the Packers to lose their game and for the Seattle to win, to make the playoffs, where they most likely will come up against a team who are better than them and will beat the crap out of them. If not in the wild card round, they'll get demolished by the 49ers. They've shown nothing to show that won't happen, really. Maybe a tiny bit. But more than that, the issues defensively with Pete Carroll being a defensive head coach are somehow the same, even though stuff has changed. As in third downs, as in not being able to stop the run. And as we've highlighted, that some of those stuff, like not being able to stop the run, is a kind of a thing under Hurt and hasn't been in previous defensive coordinators. It's kind of a new thing of the last 2 years. But I totally understand the frustration on that. And then people, as like a sports fan, people kind of, it gets to a point where they've had something for so long that they think, well, I'd like to see something else, whether it's worse or not. It feels like progress to me, even if it may not be, because it's a new thing.
Right.
So I do understand that. I just empathize with that. And where I actually find frustration is, why is it that the issues that the Seahawks have, right, are issues to start off with, and then they get kind of semi-corrected, or Pete Carroll steps in or talks about them, and we see improvements, and then they kind of regress and fade away again. A big thing from this past game, Griff, that we haven't even talked about is the tackling.
Oh, we kind of talked about it.
Right. But this wasn't a case of, oh yeah, you did talk about it. Yeah, I just missed my chance to jump in. But they spend the off season with the Seattle rugby team head coach going through tackling stuff. So, take a picture of him. They emphasize tackling. And there's been reasons why it's been bad this year, but this past game was just crap at all levels. It wasn't like tough tackles, really. It was just bad tackles. In the main, it seemed like.
Right.
In a lot of these big runs, they should not have been gone that far, and they wrote the book on tackling. Maybe they need to hire a tackling expert again. If you want to know more about tackling, Andy Ryland on Twitter is an absolutely fantastic follow. He's got whole tackling systems. Go and hire him. ADR coach dev. Go and hire him. Actually get a tackling coach, because you clearly can't coach it that well. But yeah, I obviously, yeah. It's a very depressing subject, the Pete Carroll thing, because I love Pete, but it does feel like he's been the past 2 years been let down by some very shoddy coaching underneath him.
I think that there's a lot going right now, and they're at a critical junction point, and it can easily be fixed. He just needs to prove that he can do it. So,
and this last game against the Cardinals is huge, because if they just quit or don't play football, that's a problem.
The 2021 defense didn't quit at the end. After some rough moments to kind of the preceding games, after getting it together, losing it, then they kind of ended well. I don't think the 2022 defense quit per se. They lost Brooks at the end of the year. That 49ers, they were playing the 49ers. They were playing
hard and couldn't stop the run, could they?
Yeah, they were trying, they got to finish strong. Hopefully they have the mindset that they can get into the playoffs still, yeah, we'll see. I mean, we got to let this story continue to write itself here.
Yeah, the other thing is, did they quit in this last game on defense, Griff? Because I've seen that kind of bandied about. I see Jen saying the effort on the defense was a disgrace. Did it quit to you?
I think I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I think Quandre Diggs was trying, but then when the whistle blows, his demeanor doesn't look great.
That's always his thing.
That's always been
his thing. Yeah.
Julian Love was a high effort player. He's just getting rocked. Devin Witherspoon was trying to be a spark. Derek Hall was playing hard, just losing his reps with interspersed between splash plays. Boye Mafe is doing everything he could.
Yeah, that felt like a defense where some guys are over trying, some guys are trying to do their job, some guys aren't doing their job that well, but they're still trying. It wasn't like a lack of effort. It was more guys not all being on that same page, which is that doesn't make it less frustrating. Like that's even more frustrating in a way. Like
yeah, I mean, I would start.
It's just bad defense stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's shitty defense is what it is. I think effort kind of follows after that. I don't think it's the other way around.
Yeah, which is again
what we perceive as effort.
Right, which again why this is such a big game. Now Ricardo saying 2012 they literally had instructional videos on tackling. What happened to those days? Are they not allowed to practice tackling anymore? They did, Ricardo, and USA Football in their youth tackle certification, which all British coaches have to do to coach the game. And USA Football, obviously the amateur governing body of football in America, they use those instructional videos to coach coaches on how to tackle. So those videos are still influential. Well, Rocky Seto was the guy in those videos who I think devised that tackling system and did a lot of the tackling work. So Rocky Seto no longer coaches the Seahawks. He is a pastor. So they don't have Rocky Seto anymore. John Glenn was there. Pete Carroll was there. But I think, you know, we don't know. We don't watch the practice every day. They still coach those same principles. But there's, you know, different drills they should be doing maybe. I just don't know. Now, let me try and catch up as Griff maybe comes back. Are you okay, Griff? That was a big, sound like his bells or smash.
Yeah, this is my dog.
Nice. As long as nothing's broken. Right, so Griff, real quick, because we've been going for ages. Cut Jamal Adams and Draymond Jones. They
need money. Man, I think moving on from Draymond Jones is worth it because I just think he's an average player being paid when he's being paid. I don't think he's any better than Quentin Jefferson. Maybe he bounces back if they keep him, fine. But if cutting him could mean keeping Williams or Brooks, and that's what needs to happen to keep one or both of those guys, I would do it.
Yeah, so that's interesting, Griff, because I don't know how much money they actually really save. Like if I just bring up Draymond Jones's contract here,
they save 11.5 with the post June.
Yeah, so just $5 million if they cut him before June, and then post June $11.5 million. Might be worth it.
You're taking on 6.5 each year. I would do that if it means keeping those guys. Just take the L on that signing. That was a bad signing.
The problem with it though is you kind of run out of players. Like
I know. It's like
he's a good player. Like he's a good player. He's just slightly overpaid.
Yeah.
And he has filled in like as a kind of a guy. He played football. He played on the edge. Like he's done a bit of a tough job. I mean, your issue is you believe, and I don't necessarily disagree, that he's basically given you what Quentin Jefferson could have given you. I mean, he has 4.5 sacks on the year.
His pressure rate is really low, man.
Yeah,
it's not great. I mean,
he's just a cleanup guy, right?
He's really not making plays. Like he doesn't beat blocks against the run. Like, you know, when everything is sound around him, he's fine. You know, I mean, he's not as good as he was in Denver, but he really wasn't this much better than that. Like when we watched the tape on him, we were excited when the signing was made. Then we watched the tape on him and we're kind of like, wait, where are the plays? Where are they?
I have I may have heard there's maybe a few questions over how bought in he is. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so Jamal Adams. It's obvious in the sense that he's 28 years old. He's had this really brutal injury. He came back and didn't look right. You know, he had intelligence, and Griff, you did a video on his coverage, like being really like high level in terms of reps, experience, like relating to stuff early in the year, but it was very obvious he wasn't moving right. As a blitzer, he had very minimal impact because of that sort of stuff. Then came the mistakes. Then he got shut down. Pete Carroll talks about how it's a 2-year deal. He tried to practice this past week, gets placed on IR on the Friday. Obviously had that off-field stuff where he attacked a beat reporter's significant other with a yikes, and clearly mentally coming back from, not to excuse that at all, but mentally what he's been through in terms of rehab as well is probably very difficult, and just coming to terms with the fact that it's been harder than anything he's probably been through in terms of injury recovery and all that stuff, and he's unable to perform how he knows he can at his best. So all of that said, cutting him is still a big deal because he's on a big contract. If you cut him post June the 1st, you will incur $10 million of dead money and free up. Well, no, that's not how it works, is it? Free up $16.5 million.
I think they have to.
I think they have to, but Pete obviously doesn't want to at this point. Still likes Jamal. We'll have to see what goes on, but they have to. I think it's not worth. It's not worth it.
No, and they have to prioritize Brooks and Williams. So
and
it's just a matter of who do you prioritize the most.
Right. And this brings me to what I think really has to be the theme of this Seahawks offseason, which is they need to be more cutthroat. They can't just be sentimental. They can't like wait guys out. I know they have like a culture of caring when it comes to their roster and everything, but enough. Just get younger, get faster, get leaner, get meaner, get hungrier. And none of this, like, you just got to be a bit more brutal. And you kind of have to get back to what was feeling good about 2012, 2011, where you had that churn, then you had youth and hungry alpha dogs, and guys who will just want to take jobs. And Witherspoon's a great start with that. Like, he seems to have a really cool mindset where he doesn't care who the vet is. He's going to be his own type of leader. But they just need more and more and more of that. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a 5th overall pick. If anything, it's going to be that day 3 dude who wants to make the roster above anything else. But you have to make it a meritocracy. You have to make it that the best guy will start and equal competition across the board. So you cannot be playing players who are not playing well in spite of anything. You can't just be giving them the chance, which you could argue kind of was going on with Jamal Adams. You could definitely argue was going on with Bobby Wagner in terms of some of the stuff in coverage. Frank Clark shouldn't have played. Like, Derek Hall should have played more than Frank Clark in certain games. Yeah. Frank Clark shouldn't have outsnapped him. I can't think of a good offensive example, but they need to be much more cutthroat.
Agreed. Right. No, I agree. So, and that's, they have to, and because the whole thing top to bottom needs to be their back is up against the wall. It will certainly, send a message, quote unquote.
Yeah. Okay. So, retain Jordan Brooks, Leonard Williams, or like pretty obvious, very good players, right? Like Brooks we've seen the importance of him not being in. I think he's also elevated into kind of a leadership role, right? Like he seems to, and also not just the importance of him not being in as like Bush isn't as good as Brooks, but like even just getting guys right and on the same page. I think Brooks was really important in that. Sure. It takes more than one dude at the second level telling people where to be. That being Wagner, you mean? And then draft a linebacker and safety day 2. That's 2 things they've like decided not to do for the past few drafts, and it's 2 things that, especially if you're letting Jamal Adams walk, but also I think you were presuming here, Griff, that Bobby Wagner doesn't get re-signed.
Yeah,
like that would be wild if they did that. But they just need to churn that up, get faster, younger, hungrier, right?
Right, agreed. Drafting a safety kind of gets ahead of the vacancies that they'll probably have in 2025 too.
Yeah. Diggs and maybe Love. I noticed you haven't actually said anything about Love here, but you're not that excited about him, are you?
I think they probably keep him because, again, you don't want to have too many holes.
Yeah.
And if you draft a guy you like, then you could just play him over Love.
Seems like a good guy in terms of like a pro. So good. You got Jarrett Reed coming back from a knee injury. But yeah, you need like a down safety type. But I don't even know if that really matters. You just need a guy who's good.
Who can play.
Yeah.
Do stuff. Yep.
And then Griff, draft a 3 down defensive lineman in round 1. So that's what you're doing with the first round pick. So so that could be an edge or an interior dude.
Just BPA, whoever of there is available. It doesn't matter because they'll find snaps for either.
Yeah. Draft Michael Bennett. That's what I'd do.
Yeah.
Michael Bennett would make a big difference.
Well, obviously we'll get into the names of guys we like. I'm sure we'll whittle it down to our favorite guy that's there in whatever spot they select.
Chat, it's amazing watching the 2014 or 22 of the defense. The amount of plays Michael Bennett made, just wrecking shop, like getting them out of bad spots and holes and like challenging offensive play calls for their structure. Unreal. It's like it's just ridiculous. It's like if Nwosu was 270 pounds and quick, it's just but a similar impact, I mean, to how he just disrupted stuff.
Right.
Or even better, I should say. Right. Well, chat, that's our Steelers reaction. Kind of look ahead to the offseason. Of course, it could be a bit early, could be premature. Don't forget, if the Green Bay Packers lose to the Chicago Bears next Sunday in Lambeau Field, which would be an all-time like disgrace from them. And Justin Fields looked hot, didn't he? Apparently, this past Sunday. And I know Green Bay fans aren't happy about the defense, so we'll have to see how that works out. And the Seahawks win in Arizona at the Cardinals, which the Cardinals just beat the Eagles. They're going to be frisky, and Seattle can't really stop the run. And the Cardinals have that QB run element to their game plan, and Seattle hasn't really shown like they have enough front versatility maybe to stop that. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. And that's a cursed stadium, so I'm sure something terrible happened anyway. But if that happens, then the Seahawks do still make the playoffs. But there's a lot of ifs and buts. That's the unfortunate thing about the Steelers loss, as we've covered. Griff, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, you said it all. You said it all.
Oh dear.
No
follow Griff on Twitter at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Follow the podcast at Seattle Overload. Please do like the video, comment down below. Oh my gosh, Griff, we've missed a donation. ZC, thank you so much. Do they mostly not play a nose tackle due to personnel issues? Can you talk about how a nose helps the run defense? You guys are great. Thank you. So by nose tackle, ZC, I presume you mean like that kind of bigger nose. The way I describe that is Al Woods was abnormally large, something Pete Carroll's pointed out. So was Brian Monet. The reason those guys were large was because they were playing them head up on the center in a zero tech and asking them to kind of two gap. Really, it was strike the guy and then lag into the backside gap. But they having more mass there was preferable and fit the fronts they were running. This year, they've played it a shaded nose, so a guy on the outside shoulder of the center, shaded to the strong side if they were running an under front, which is their most used base 3-4 personnel front. But on the vast majority of plays, shaded to the weak side of the formation, away from the tight end, because on the vast majority of plays this year, they've run a over front with nickel personnel out on the field, so 5 DBs. Why all that matters? Well, when you're playing in the shade, you're more kind of a one gap guy, power stepping, playing forward, playing fast. So it suits the lighter type of guy. If you look back at the Seahawks when they were at their prime, when they had Mebane, they had lighter kind of nose tackles, more 300-poundish, 310-poundish. Griff, give me another Seahawks nose tackle from the Legion of Boom days.
For the Legion of Boom days, I mean, Clint McDonald, kind of.
Yes.
He was more of a rush nose.
So these are like 3 10-pounders.
Kevin Williams.
Kevin Williams, great. Brilliant example. Man, it sucks he didn't win a Super Bowl with Seattle.
Yeah, that does suck.
Absolutely sucks because he was like playing some pretty good ball as well.
Yeah.
Although, actually, no, never mind. It's the end of the show. Yeah, I think there's something.
You just saved us from another tangent.
Wikipedia. But yeah, so ZC, I hope that answers your question. Basically, so Jaron Reed's been amazing as the nose tackle, right? Like absolutely brilliant. And so the nose isn't really the issue with the defense. The issue's been the second level becoming disconnected from the first level with this past game, and then just lack of like further answers, just lining up in that same look, even though they stunt and move. Thank you so much for the donation.
Thank you.
808. Nice. Right. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Oh, yeah. Keep the faith.